Well, folks, we got a request again to cover, at least at a high level, another underdog token. I don't even know if it qualifies as underdog, frankly. User Jimmy Obel says, quote, please review LAIKA ERC. I had never heard of LAIKA ERC. I'm familiar with the dog. LAIKA, of course, I believe out of Russia, the first dog to ever be launched into outer space and presumed to have died there because it never made it back. And I took a look at the token. I've got its basic stat data up here, and here's what I've gleaned from this business. This token, as far as now I'm stressed, this is based on the data I see. I'm not going extreme deep in this business. It's a high level overview. So I don't want people coming at me talking about what I didn't know if I did do. And don't tell me go to Telescam. I'm not going to Telescam. My evaluation is based on the regular layman outside the bubble investor and what they would see, period. So any information that you say, well, what about that? That would only have been shared in Telescam. I'm not going to see it, and it's not going to be counted. I don't grade on a curve. So I started with CoinMarketCap to try to understand first what it is and get access to the explorers. This token apparently started in beginning of August. So it's only been around a month according to the chart data that I see. Because I went all time, and that's what I see is that it started roughly around August in terms of when they loaded the liquidity. Had the initial pump and then crapped and had never recovered. So that's probably why Mr. Obel's asking about it now. Well, it has 1 trillion of supply, right? And you'll notice it's not really impressive looking in what it's doing. There's a couple of reasons for that, I believe. I'll get to that in a second. There's a story behind this token. This token was ostensibly founded off of the same narrative as certain tokens like Antecedent and others that say we're going to be the SHIB killer. We're going to beat SHIB. We can do what SHIB did better. And for them, they said, we'll just keep a smaller supply, build a community, and we'll make it work. I don't know how many times I got to tell these token projects, SHIB was a perfect storm that can never be replicated by any project ever because it was too perfect of a storm. It's never something that you can easily replicate. You can't. That's just the way it is. So stop trying to be SHIB and be your own person. Tying it to LAIKA might have actually worked, other than the fact that Russia, of course, is in a war situation and sentiment's harmed. Regardless, this token, from what I can tell, does not have any fancy mechanics. It doesn't have a buy and sell tax. Thus, it doesn't have any sort of reflections. It truly is a very similar contract to SHIB, which I believe might have also been to its detriment. But I noticed something. There's some chatter on CoinMarketCap. We'll get to that in a second. But independently, I also noticed something on their blockchain. So if you go to the Blockchain Explorer for EtherScan, because it's an Ether token, close to, well, a little bit over 1,400 holders, their profile is perfectly filled out. Do you know why I consider this a joke? And it's a black eye in the face of the business, because that means that, let me explain how these blockchain explorers work. To get your token listed, to get your icon up there, to get your profiles up there, to get it to where it's a clean profile. The process is you create your token. You then go to their site, and there's usually some function where you're going to tell it that you own the token down here, token approvals, verified. You're telling it, I own this token, verified contract. I own this, and so I want to be able to manage it. I want to be able to update a profile like any other site. When you do the connect, you can acknowledge it all you care to. You can create the link to the owner and do. But to get it to where it's showing social profiles, to get it to where it's showing your logo, it goes to this form. And it's a stupid form that you have to fill out. And then it's a group somewhere, humans, yes, it takes 2 weeks normally to get a response on this business. And it's humans somewhere, likely in an Indian call center, who just look at it. You can't contact them directly at all. You have to go through the form, and they'll tell you, okay, we want a LinkedIn. We want other ways to verify people. And we want some white paper and a roadmap, and we want to see what you do. Here's the site, LAIKAtoken.io. Do you see any of that on this site? I don't. This message, quote, if you have found this early, as in prior to launch, please head on over to Telescam. This website's currently under development, meaning they never got a website up. They never finished the damn thing. But yet, EtherScan was perfectly happy to approve them and their profile. That's shady. I'm telling you it's shady because, trust me, I'm aware of what the blockchain This process is on, I've seen it multiple times. They will adamantly reject silly, stupid things. I know why this one got expedited. That's what I'm gonna get to here momentarily. Going back then to CoinMarketCap, I saw some comments that intrigued me. And this one here talks about a Medium article and says, yeah, quote, why LAIKA deserves a spot with top dogs in crypto. No, it doesn't. I'm going to get into that article momentarily. But this calling it out that it was a thing intrigued me. User Beck something, quote, what happened? Was this a freaking rug pull because of the pump and dump pattern? It actually was not a rug pull by definition. It just simply pumped and dumped. I'll get to why here momentarily. User Jeff Yon Dunn says, quote, SHIB killer has killed LAIKA by themselves and refers to the pump and dump graph. Notice this graph is coming from MEXC. Interesting, huh? This got on MEXC damn near immediately, despite having no utility, despite really not doing anything, despite only having, at the time, less than 1,400 holders, and for some damn reason, they got on MEXC when the vast majority of cryptocurrency can't do it. The plot thickens. User DaveSin26 says, quote, this sham coin was launched on a 100% bag of lies story. Devs bought in big on stealth launch and are slow rugging. Come back to it. User Zay says, quote, any coin calling itself the SHIB killer always fails. SHIB's still fresh. They waited years to this too soon. He's probably waited too long. Now, I'm going back to Jeff and his image and this whole SHIB killer and all this and the fact it's MEXC. I'm telling you, the exchanges want to see holder counts more than anything. They want to see strong volume. They want to see that there's something that it's going to be worth their time, unless it's a lesser exchange. MEXC is a large exchange. The lesser exchanges, they're going to list any damn thing you want. You can get on something like CoinTiger without half blinking. But your MEXCs of the world, your LBanks of the world, your Bitmarts of the world, your Hotbets of the world, it is extremely difficult to get on these exchanges, which is why not every token gets on the exchanges. I found it very sketchy that MEXC, for whatever reason, was willing to list this garbage when it never passed 1,400 frickin' holders at the peak, even now with a market cap that's crap and that rhymes. And then I look at CoinMarketCap in the graph and I see it's the pump and dump, which this peak, this pump, 3 days after the damn thing launched. So 3 days after it launches, and it's getting millions of dollars in volume. People in the commentary speculated that there were some big money players that got in here, right here. Big backers have plans to push the narrative of the Space Doggy project and the article. So the theory was that somewhere there's some big money players that saw this message and said, we're going to run with this and we're going to dump some money in this. I started to think, was Del Rugpull, aka Del Crypto, involved in this? Because I know he has access to the big money players too, and he tends to do these things. Here's where it got really funny. And again, Mr. Obil, I apologize if it's not what you wanted to hear, but I do think it's a good opportunity to keep people safe. They have a medium. Now, this medium has got to be like anybody that knows Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and what he wrote. This is the crypto version of Ted Kaczynski's Unabomber manifesto. That's exactly what it is. I'm not going to read everything that's here. I'm going to try my best to summarize what this person's saying. I don't know who this person is or how they associate to the project. However, they wrote this article on June 29th, roughly a week prior to the go live of this business, which tells me this person had some inside knowledge about this whole LAIKA and what they were planning to do. And due to ethics and morals, said, I'm not going to do it, and I got to write this up and then walk away. He goes into a rant and he's talking about, he's using a lot of big words that don't need to be there, but what he's essentially saying is he's criticizing pretty much everybody that's at the top of cryptocurrency, kind of like this Illuminati thing when you talk the idiot Vitalik or you talk Ryoshi, who he allegedly names because he had never identified himself, allegedly named. He's talking about Web3. He's talking about the pumps and dumps. He's talking about the same thing I've said, which is that people outside the crypto bubble, they're not going to understand this and you're exploiting them, essentially. He's criticizing retail investors. He's criticizing that regular people, like everybody listening to this, presumably, don't want to learn, and they're all gambling, and they're all going out the next big, which this Illuminati is banking on, so that they can rip you off, and people keep doing it. That's what he's ultimately saying. But he calls out so many different people. Do Rug Pull, aka Do Kwon, the Danielle, founder of Time I'd never heard of, but said stealth launch, quote, stealth launch Time so he and his Defy Goon squad of influencers, shillers, could get in early and gain a majority share of the supply. They then peddled decentralization and freedom in Twitter spaces until the cows came home, whilst routinely dumping without a second thought. You know what you were doing? Beautiful. Quote, perceived quite literally as a Twitter god, Do Rug Pull was rumored, much like Kim Jong-un, to never defecate, as in not take a shit, tweeting with a sort of hypnotic arrogance that formulates cults. His community made Charles Manson's The Family look like the Babysitter's Book Club, only to eventually cash out and leave the retail investor with nada, zilch. More people's life savings than we realized were reduced to zero. They were too embarrassed to admit it. The fact that the Google search engine auto-suggests the second half of the phrase, Terra Luna confirmed suicides count is utterly horrendous. The writing is absolutely brilliant. It is masterful. It's a masterclass in writing it down. And then he bottom lines it brilliantly. SHIB is down 92%. This is factually true. People don't understand this. SHIB is not at the original all-time high. SHIB is down from the all-time high even now. Quote, everything else Ryoshi has touched is down at least 99%. Luna is down 100%. That is still factually true. And if you look at the original, the pre-disaster price of Luna, this is still factually true. Time I never heard of, down 99%. Meanwhile, worshiping founders is up 10,000%. He's calling them all out, man. He's going for broke. He's going for the juggler. He's talking about the cult leader on Saitama. He's talking about the car salesman on Seifu, car salesman 2.0 on LotPay, car salesman 3.0 on SafeJet. All the cult worship that happens out there where they don't listen, the regular investors don't listen. All they do is listen to the people behind the project. Yes, it is going to all-time highs because it's all about the hopium, and he's calling this out. Well, then he talks about, look, to create a token that actually does something. You don't need brilliance to do that. Just create a token that does something. And instead, what you're doing is creating shitcoins. Brilliant. He goes even further. He says, I know, quote, I know precisely who Ryoshi is. He knows that I know, and that scares him, and so it should. Now, he doesn't expose this till later on down, but let's get to this one. He talks about SHIB. Quote, let's start by praising the almighty Shiba Inu, the great meme season success story of 2021. Most have a bag of it somewhere, but few know the truth of its origin story. I do. You're about to. You'll want a summer of 2020 DeFi chat on hand to verify all of what I'm about to tell you. So call Eric, your dumb friend that never sold his XRP in 2017. Let's get going. Lying out of the gate, Ryoshi inferred a meeting with the idiot Vitalik that never happened. Then, with intervention from a whale that shall remain nameless, Ryoshi watched as the SHIB narrative snowballed from a measly $1 million to $4 billion. Ryoshi at the time lacked the capital to properly exploit the situation, exiting with a splash our nameless inner circle whale, who, by the way, is holding the space by the balls, left behind more than shattered dreams and crushed souls. He's certainly a Gold Dust fan. He left behind the keys to the kingdom, the SHIB deployer. Here's the allegation. The allegation is that the person who created the initial pump and dumped a lot of money into it was actually the SHIB deployer itself. This is a form of wash trading, is what he's implying. He's not saying it, but he's implying this. Quote, from that moment forward, SHIB was little more to Ryoshi than a personal tool for fuckery. Anything it deployed, a surefire road to people's paychecks, savings accounts, stimulus checks, and the odd set of social security numbers. Never mind Shiba Swap, the Shibarium, and the NFTs the SHIB ecosystem peddle for profit. Those are small fry, blatant dog shit. Let's instead focus on the less publicly known schemes that transpired right under our noses. I was dying, reading, and just enjoying, taking it in because it was brilliantly written. First stop, rebase season, quote, it's June 2020, and Ample, as in Ampleforth, goes deservedly ballistic. Ampleforth, of course, was one of the most notable rebase tokens. I've talked about it intermittently. Quote, kicking DeFi up into fifth gear while spawning all sorts of copycats. Meanwhile, Ryoshi's keys to the kingdom began burning a hole in his pocket. And before long came Leash. Leash, for those that don't know, is part of the SHIB ecosystem, was initially envisioned as a rebase token, was created later to be a so-called, quote, wealth token, was onboarded, described as a SHIB killer, or excuse me, a Doge killer, quote, quietly onboarding insiders to then remove the rebase function. So in other words, he's saying that this secret group of people conspired to make it not rebase and simply put it in as a regular token. By doing so, you're leaning the wealth over towards the people that got in early. Quote, nullifying what little utility it had while extrapolating hype. That's why it's a wealth token. Quote, essentially just another zero utility ERC20 token that was tethered to SHIB. Leash hit $9,000 per token, inspiring our Silver Serpent serial schemer to wonder just how far could he take this thing. Interestingly enough, although active on Medium, Ryoshi went Twitter silent for a full year, while elsewhere in the space, shady characters materialized. So this later part's not really that relevant. I want to talk about the 9,000 per token because it is true. Leash pumped to unreasonable levels. Leash was going up. Now, Leash was a byproduct of the hype that Ampleforth initially enjoyed. Ampleforth was going nuts when that thing launched because it was one of the earliest and most notable, and to a lesser degree, most marketed rebase tokens that there was. Leash was designed initially to be the rebase for the SHIB ecosystem until they removed the rebasing. So now it's this big story around, well, this guy made a whole crap ton of money, certainly off Leash, because he would have held a bunch of the supply. When it hit 9,000 a token, he didn't need very much of it, and he would have been made major bank. Quote, did someone say meme season 2.0? Here comes Kuma Inu, the creme de la creme of dumpster fires, launching shortly after the Inner Circle's pre-sale party. This pile of shit coincided perfectly with the second peak of 2021 meme season, just days before the idiot Vitalik burned/donated his undesired SHIB airdrop. There's two things going on here. Number one, Kuma Inu is on the Ethereum chain. It's a side token. It has never gotten to a point of any true success whatsoever. And it came off the heels of all the dog tokens that were spent at the time. SHIB, the story around it is that the team had initially dumped a bunch of tokens to the idiot Vitalik, who then basically burned the vast majority of what he had because he didn't really want them. And that helped some of the price pump that was going on with SHIB and with the rest of the ecosystem. Quote, the only utility Kuma Inu possessed, a 3-sentence Medium article with a dog JPEG and the fact it was transferred 50 ETH by SHIB Deployer 1, a SHIB deployer which, according to Ryoshi, was community ran and may or may not have been directly tied to the original SHIB team. What he's saying here is there's a theory he's putting here that the SHIB team, the SHIB eco, the SHIB wallet, the SHIB investor money was used to create what became Kuma Inu. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily. However, was that ever communicated from the SHIB team? I'm pretty sure that's a no. Quote, the Kuma metrics completely and utterly contradict everything Ryoshi preached in order to attain community support in the first place, and then talks about, okay, we're going to separate these tokens and do all this different stuff and have some that go to early investors and all this stuff. And what he's really resonating with is that there was a profit motivation behind what was going on here that contradicted the original vision under Ryoshi that spawned SHIB in the first place. Quote, meet Nicoder, the highly experienced dev the Kuma Inu team dragged into the picture to save the day once the price and all the hopium along with it considerably dipped. The narrative pitched that Nicoder was up to the task of building a V2 Kuma Inu, unlocking the founder's tokens while relinquishing idiot Vitalik of his airdrop, so as to construct a leveraged DEX for all meme tokens. Back during the Kuma Inu fiasco, there was chatter around, and even with ID Finance and many others. Part of what many of them wanted to do, they realized that sending tokens to the dude was a big mistake. All of them only did it because SHIB got away with it with a burn, but then Vitalik, using ID as an example, he sold the damn thing and essentially rug pulled it. If you want to be by the black letter, he essentially rug pulled it. So now all these other tokens, they just followed what SHIB did, not thinking through, oh, he'll just burn our tokens and we'll benefit too. Instead, he's over here selling the tokens and then doing whatever with the money, which is causing rug pull. It's basically draining the volume of the project. So everybody then started to scramble to try to create a V2 to try to get away from it. ID has never recovered even now. They went on the Polygon chain and it's still garbage. In fact, they got rid of the reflections, which except for at the high level holder, which is garbage. All of the other ones tried to do the V2 to decouple from the Vitalik problem. And then they wanted to create this central, decentralized, I know that's contradictory, that's what it is, a central, decentralized exchange for all being garbage tokens. Some tokens I covered. We're talking about doing something like this. Just create this outlaw mud show exchange for all these garbage mean tokens to just pump and dump each other. Quote, Hopium back in full swing. The project soared for only Coder to turn out to be the original dev all along, the original dev of Kuma, at which point the founders ditched the newly unlocked coins. The price consequently tanked. He means sold. Price consequently tanked, and the building of the decks was never again mentioned. So he's saying, without saying, that Kuma essentially became a rug pull, because that's what happened. The money was, once they got access to the money that had been locked from them, they dumped off the project and left the rest of the investors hanging, which is why Kuma has never recovered even to this day. Quote, milk to high heaven and back twice over the Kuma SHIB, sold on Ryoshi's philosophy of decentralization, remained hopeful. Talking about the people inside Kuma, the people inside SHIB, saying, you know what, we can still make this work. We can still recover, and let's go ahead and do this. Deeply unhappy, quote, deeply unhappy and bloated with bad karma, we can assume that Ryoshi, which is blatantly the Kuma Inu founder, was jealous of their optimism and resilience and sought to destroy whatever hope they had left by locking the channel on Telescam May 30th of 2022, but not for saying this. And then he has a screenshot of this message from the official Kuma account saying, sell your Kuma, move on, there's better projects out there. Wow. I'm not going to read this one here. This is about Wolf. This is another character that he's talking that's not directly related to his business. Here comes NFT season. Introducing Do It Buy. Never heard of it? Lucky you. This gem was stealth launched from a fresh deployer to ensure that only the inner circle of inner circleists would get in on the ground floor. This one's personal. I could care less about the funds. That was somebody's life. You know who you are. Fuck you, slippery cunt. The only catalyst required, public-to-public listing, a transfer of 21 ETH from the SHIB deployer. And abracadabra, here comes the masses. Retail promptly enters, and then there's a dump. Again, another pump and dump. And he's tying this back to the SHIB deployer. The mantra here is that all of these other ones he's calling out as they're all tied to the SHIB. All of these are spawned from SHIB and the wealth that they basically effectively stole from SHIB, and they're using to set up all these pump and dump projects that they know are going to wreck people. I'm going to keep going down because he's talking about other things that aren't directly related to the core of this. And there's this bullet point here. Quote, bullet points for those with reading disabilities. Of course, you have a reading disability, you can't read the bullet points. Regardless, I'm going to read it for you. Quote, worshiping founders, because I agree with all three of these. Worshiping founders as gods, as in leaders, like the cult leader on Saitama, the car salesman on Seifu, car salesman 2.0. You know the kind. They spin up a project and they think their shit doesn't stink. That's who he's talking about. Quote, worshiping founders as gods always ends badly. Such is centralization. Yes, it is, because there's one person making the decisions, as we saw with Seifu. Quote, they're just people, almost all of which are here for money, same as you, which is correct. Quote, a founder's true worth is their project's performance long term. You've heard me say, every project you have to give them time and let it flesh out and see what's going to happen. You can't know right up front, and you can't go into short pumps. Quote, whether technologically, economically, or socially, this is their true reflection, as in reflection of value. Quote, coins don't scam people, founders do, as in the people behind the project, not even just founders, devs too. It's the people behind the project. If they're going to rip you off, they're going to rip you off, even if it's the greatest code. Quote, discard their pretty words. A founder is only as good as their actions. Pay close attention, which is 100%, absolutely 100%. Now, here's where he wraps it all up. And I don't know the inside scoop that led him to this, but again, this was prior to the launch of this LAIKA. He says effectively, he's not going to buy into it. He's not going to do anything with it. He's not going to support it. He's not going to let it be anything. I take this to mean that he is a high money person who was asked to contribute to the pump and dump. And ethically, he chose not to do it. That's how I read it, is that he was asked to give a lot of money to help pump and dump the project to benefit those behind it. And he feels like LAIKA might have been influenced by somebody else under the hood. Now, this is renounced. It's got all the other stuff, but it doesn't mean that people could not have held tokens that could have dumped off the project after it got to an initial pump. So when I saw this medium and I saw all the stuff with CoinMarketCap and all the chatter and everything else, my summary, Mr. Oval, is this project it's got to be like if college actually cared about cryptocurrency, This is one of those case study type projects. This is one of those projects that shows you exactly what not to do in cryptocurrency. But it also, I'm inspired by whoever wrote this, and I wish more people would write this as clearly somebody who has some inside scoop on some of this business. I wish more would do this. I wish more would show and expose some of these shady, slimy people that are linked in multiple projects, taking more money in a layered fashion from people and triggering the pump and dump patterns that we see on so many projects. Because my guess, there's a lot more of those people out there, and kudos to this person for at least putting it out there. And if they didn't buy in, not buying in, but exposing it. Should somebody buy into it? I'm not even going to position that one because it's got such a shady history behind it, even if it's renounced, even if the liquidity is locked, even if the dev has abandoned it, even if it's still going, but it's community. It's got so many fundamental problems. Like, think about this. Why would you want to invest money in garbage, true garbage? Because that's what it is right now. It's garbage because it was built to be garbage. It was built to apparently rip people off up the scratch. Why would you want to invest in garbage like this, trash like this, instead of simply tossing a little bit of money into Luna Classic, which you've heard my other video, I straight said, Luna Classic cannot honeypot you, cannot rug pull you. The liquidity is always going to be there, and it's trending upward even now. Why would you even consider garbage like this when Luna Classic's out there as a solid investment? And you can also check my other video about my Fave 5. There are other projects out there that are stronger projects that are going to take care of you. I'll say it because I know people will ask, and this is my test of people listening to the duration of my audio. If you're a gambler and you only care about gambling on the crap projects, by all means, have at it. You will never hear Leicester recommend garbage. This is garbage. And it's unfortunate because it didn't need to be garbage. But apparently there's some slimy, shady business behind this that makes it garbage. Even if there might have been the best of intentions, the truth is it's garbage. It's not going to be anything now, or I don't believe it'll be anything in the future. I don't. And it doesn't have any fundamentals at all when you've got Luna Classic over there that's already made people life-changing money and is a significantly safer bet even now. I can't fathom why anybody would even consider this guy. However, if that's your gambler spirit speaking, by all means, I will never recommend doing it. I'll never recommend anybody buy into crap like this. Absolutely not. I'm sorry. It is the antithesis of what I believe. Not even because of the media article. Not even because of the core, the token and everything. But they didn't even give a damn to update a website. And you're telling me that they're legit. They're not legit. They're not serious about it. And I don't care that they abandoned it. They couldn't even be arsed to update a website. And then they had to use shady business to get on MEXC because that was shady business. There's the only explanation. With 1,400 holders, shady business. This is never going to succeed. Anybody who buys in, I believe, is exit liquidity, essentially at the core. And this will never get to any sort of profit at any point in the future. That said, I repeat, last time, if you are a gambler and you want to roll the dice, by all means, you have all rights to do that. It is your money.